Hello, it's time for crazy experiments in the media division. Today we are going to build a digital film camera with a sensor twice the size of an IMAX original film. And it's gonna have 200 megapixels, that is 16K for crazy image quality.
The zoom you are experiencing here is purely digital. The camera is not moving and no optical zoom is applied. We are going to achieve this with the help of an old large format photo camera. That will allow us to effectively use the huge image projection that a large format lens delivers and the full frame Cinematography MAVO LF as a scanning device.
As always, we're gonna upload this in 8K so you can see a little bit of this amazing quality. Are you gonna use this in your next production? Hell no. Why are we doing it then? Well, because we can, and I'm curious about the results myself.
By going to the extreme, we can also reveal whether the trend to larger formats and more resolution brings something good to the table, or are we on our best way to overshoot the sweet spot that a smaller format offers. Are we going to just burn our hard-earned money for little to no meaningful effect? We are going to compare the Beyond IMAX frame with the exact same shot taken in full frame, Super 35 and Micro Four Thirds formats. And we're going to find out if there's an inconvenient truth to be found.
Of course, we're gonna let you download the original file to play with, but now let's put a saddle on your inner nerd and give him the spores. This is Beyond IMAX. Let's get right into how we're going to achieve an image that is twice the size of IMAX. First of all, an image is not created by a sensor, but by the lens first. So the only lenses that have an image cycle that is large enough to cover a sensor of that size is a lens built for large format cameras.
This is a Xena large format camera. Large format cameras are basically just huge bellows with adjustable front and back elements. The elements can be precisely adjusted in all sorts of ways, like distance, pan, shift and tilt. Instead of a viewfinder, the back element contains a ground glass. The ground glass is a natural optical monitor that shows that the image of a lens is always upside down. What a stranger thing, right? The ground glass allows to frame and focus before inserting a negative. In the front element we have a Fujinon 180mm f5.6. It is a large format lens, but it's barely larger than a full frame prime. The reason for that is that it doesn't have to contain the necessary distance to the negative. The bellows of the camera will do that job. At f5.6 it is slow like all large format lenses are. The shutter is a leaf design built right into the lens above the iris.
There's nothing magical about a large format lens. It is just designed to project an image on a plane that is further away and more spread out. That is all.
Of course, there's no sensor at this time that is remotely large enough or delivers 16K. So we're going to use the largest and best sensor that is available to us, and that is the full frame sensor in our Cinematography MAVO LF, a large format cinema camera, allowing us to record our ultra high resolution in 12-bit ProRes 444XQ. Let us prepare the camera for shooting. First we remove the bellows. Then we remove the ground glass and insert the MAVO instead. One of the best features of this camera is that it has a sub-mount that will allow it to attach a variety of mounts. If we remove that mount, we can make sure that when we move the camera around to scan the parts of the image, the mount will not cast a shadow. Perfect.
Of course, you could use the Brennheiser method if you were just going for the resolution. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't emulate the properties that a larger sensor would actually have.
The frame that we want to cover has the size of 104 × 70 mm. So, to scan that with 35mm full frame, we have to split that into 9 segments. That will also leave just enough overlapping for minor inaccuracies during the positioning, because in this realm a millimeter is a lot. The resulting frame will have a resolution of 17,200 times 11,420, so it is more than 16K and roughly 200 megapixel at 24 frames per second. Our setup is in readiness, the room is hazed. We now just move the sensor successively to film the different portions of the frame. One after another, we film each portion for about 30 seconds, giving us enough wiggle room for a reasonable long 10-second clip. As it is hard to cut right through a moving object, we cheat and film the rear wheel in one piece as an extra segment. After we have all the segments together, we import everything in After Effects, where we edit out a clean 10-second sequence of each segment, put them on a separate layers and in the places they belong. If everything went right, the puzzle should give you a near perfect final image. This is the 16K file, and depending on the stream you're watching and the resolution of your display, it is massively oversampled. 10 times if you're watching at full HD. We start to digitally zoom into the picture, and along the way we are going to display smaller frame sizes and resolution thresholds. Our first stop is the IMAX size. Everything within this frame would be covered by an analog IMAX camera at the same position and focal length. 8K is our first resolution threshold. After this point, the content needs to be upscaled if watched on an 8K display. We are approaching 35mm full frame or VistaVision format. Next up is the Super 35 format. As there are many variations, we will display the 4perf size. We hit the 4K threshold, and right after that the Micro Four Thirds frame size. The Full HD threshold is the last major thresholds we are passing. Lower resolutions become increasingly rare in broadcast as well as on online platforms. But it's still interesting to see how large a common phone camera sensor would be, and what resolution standard definition TV would have in this context. You might have realized that the 16K sample is displayed at half speed. The reason for that is simple. It took 60 hours to render this sequence. To do it at full speed would have simply been impossible due to time limits on a production system. But normal speed looks like this.
As promised, you'll find a link to the original file in the description, but I have to warn you, it's a 20 gigabyte ProRes file, and if you download and just open it, you will not be able to play it. At least my computer can't. You will just get QuickTime as just a black screen. I think it's because the GPUs are just not designed to play anything close to that resolution. What you can do is you can put it into a software like After Effects that uses CPU for rendering, and there you can actually see the content of the file, and you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can play it not in real time of course, but you can play with it to your heart's desire. You can even use it in your non-commercial work. All you need to do is to mention my channel and link to this video.
Before we go ahead and compare this scene with full frame, Super 35 and Micro Four Thirds, pitch different large formats used in movies against each other and against standard size formats, here are some channel related informations.
As you might have noticed, YouTube has changed his algorithm, so just subscribing will not make sure that you see our next episode. So if you're really interested and you want to see the next episode, you will have to not only subscribe, but click the notification bell as well.
No! I suggest you reconsider. I won't do it!
Then you leave us no alternative.
I'll do it!
We also have an Instagram account under the handle media.division, where you can see what we are cooking for the next episode and give you some behind the scenes. If you're interested in how we lit the projector for today's episode or how we filmed the macro shots of the lens, you'll find photos and descriptions of the setups right there. So, follow us on Instagram, please give us a like if you think we deserve one, and don't forget to ring that bell for notifications.
I understand. Bless you, my son.
We would like to give a shout out to Soonwell. The FB21 flexible LED light has a place in most of our setups because it's just so practical, and it was part of our ultra portable lighting kit that we described in our last epic lighting episode. Link is in the corner. Soonwell liked that episode so much that they surprised us by sending us the little brother of the FB21, the FB11. It has all the cool features that make the FB20 so nice to work with, but it has half the size, and it's a bit cheaper. It is the ideal companion to the FB21, for example, as a fill light, but it's easily bright enough to work as a key as well. I just love how easy it is to add a quick fill light. You don't even have to use a light stand. There's a practical lamp in the corner, clamp the FB11 right on there. Done. Want it soft? Add the included softbox with or without a grid, or just clamp a diffuser on a stand in front.
It is just so easy to use, and the light that it generates is really good. So, thank you Soonwell. Is a large sensor always better than a small one? And let's put aside the financial and the practical aspects for now. It is a polarizing subject, and I can almost hear half of you guys screaming, "Of course it is, you numbskull," and the other half screaming, "No, of course it's not, the results are just indistinguishable." At least for me, I've been talking about it a lot lately, and I can say that my opinion about the whole subject is evolving constantly, which I consider a good thing, because as long as I keep exploring the subject, the more likely I am to come to a true solution. You often hear that perspective is only a matter of the camera's position and distance, and it's not influenced by the sensor size or the focal length. You can just use equivalence. Well, that should mean that the following test should deliver the exact same results. Let's see.
We start with the Beyond IMAX framing, and after that we switch our setup to an ordinary zoom lens to compensate for cropping further and further in. It is helpful to watch what the background is doing, especially the white cabinet. We crop to full frame and set the lens to 70mm. We can see that we were not able to hit the exact same camera position, so we get minor changes in perspective. We crop to Super 35 and zoom out to 50mm to compensate. We crop to Micro Four Third and again zoom out to compensate, this time to 35mm. Side by side, all formats look pretty identical. Differences in color are due to the inconsistent haze and the change in lenses. If we zoom in, the vastly different resolutions of the images become apparent, but this is due to the sensor cropping. When we compare the normal formats to each other, it seems there is practically no difference in perspective or magnification of the background. So the thesis that it's only the distance seems to be true. But maybe the difference in sensor size is just too small to give a noticeable effect. So let's compare the smallest, so the Micro Four Thirds, to the Beyond IMAX frame. As we can see, there is a difference in the magnification of the background. There is definitely some effect that the different angle of the camera generates, but the scale of the white cabinet should not be affected by that. It seems that it is incorrect that distance is all that matters. But as the size difference has to be massive to make a noticeable difference, it is neglectable. Comparing full frame to Micro Four Third already shows that there is no meaningful difference at all in terms of perspective. Looking at the origins of large format cinematography, it seems obvious that 65mm and IMAX film delivers superior detail and less grain. Let's have a look at some iconic scenes shot on 65mm film and IMAX. Side by side with other formats, this should reveal if that is true. Here are some scenes from 2009 Space Odyssey and from Lawrence of Arabia. While both scenes are just marvelous, grain is quite apparent and hardly superior to Super 35 film in comparable situations. The overall detail doesn't seem to be massively better either. Christopher Nolan mixes 65mm and IMAX all the time in Dunkirk. While both large formats, an IMAX frame has significantly larger surface than 65mm. Still, even if we put similar scenes shot on the different formats right next to each other, they are virtually indistinguishable. With Shutter Island we can do the same, comparing 65mm to Super 35mm, as one scene in the film has been shot with 65mm. This time I will not tell you which one is it right away. Can you tell? Try to find out the answer without researching it, and let me know in the comments what you think and why. I think what is happening here is that the light is spread out further to cover the larger negative. Also, to get a reasonable depth of field, the f-stop has to be relatively high. Every crystal in the emulsion is getting less photons, and the effect is that the gain in resolution is cancelled out by the lack of light. All this is applicable to digital sensors. And yes, these nutjobs did carry an IMAX camera up Mount Everest.
So if, and only if, all of this is true, why was large format invented for cinematography at all? I want to bring up something that most of you might not have thought about yet. And that has to do with a quite recent development. We can now produce cold light sources, but not so long ago that was impossible. So if we had a very, very bright light, it would always be a light that would emit a lot of heat.
Let's take a look inside the guts of my 16mm projector with the help of a lower probe lens. Projector lamps are extremely hot because of high wattage, and the infrared radiation is focused along the visible light through the celluloid. Even with the moderate power of the lamp inside this projector of only 500 watts, you can see what heat radiation does to dust, or even a sheet of paper. Celluloid melts immediately when it's not transported through the hellish heat fast enough.
You can imagine what would happen if we would apply a lamp with thousands of watts. You would start to need active cooling in the gate, and that's what 35mm projectors in cinemas do. But that has its thermal limits. That actually limits the effective size of your projection. If you want to have a larger projection that has the same brightness overall, you would need to push more light, and if you can't, you are stuck. And this is where large format come into the equation. The larger format allows the light to be less focused, and the larger surface can be cooled more efficiently. So IMAX basically was developed to be able to shoot more light to gigantic screens.
But why didn't they just film with 35mm and upscale to the large format during development? I don't know. I can just assume that with the reproduction methods of that time, a blow-up would have been too soft, and that grain and flaws in the negative would have been amplified too much.
Does this mean that large format in cinematography in cinemas today is nothing more than marketing? Is the trend to larger formats in film cameras just a way to sell more cameras? I don't know. It looks a bit like it. But I'm totally open for evidence that shows otherwise. I would really like to hear from filmmakers that actually use large format in movies, what they see in it that makes it worthwhile. More than a feeling, something tangible. So, Mr. Scorsese, Mr. Tarantino, Mr. Nolan, if you should stumble across this, please tell me what makes large format worthwhile for you. I hope you find this interesting and useful, and if you subscribe, don't forget that subscribing is almost useless today if you don't push the notification, so press that bell too. If you're interested in the lighting setup for the projector or the talkie, you can go to Instagram. I put a link in the description, and you can always drop me a message on Instagram or here in the comments. I always love to socialize with you guys. That's what it's all about. See you soon here in the Media Division. I'm Nicholas, signing out with no delicious wishes. Shoot something amazing. Bye.